If you could, I'd like you to please stand, take off your hats. I'd like to introduce Julie Kajalski to sing our national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets rocked the bombs bursting in air gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of free and the home of the brave?
Thank you, Julie. That was awesome. I would now like to introduce to say our opening prayer, Chaplain Bob Gregoire.
We, the veterans of the city of Marlborough and the community of Marlborough, have gathered here this evening to pay respects to the veterans of World War II and to give comfort to their family and friends. We ask you to join with us in the spirit of fellowship and prayer. Together, let us pray the 23rd Psalm. Uncover. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. In verdant pastures he gave me repose. Beside restful waters he leads me, he refreshes my soul. He guides me in light, bright paths for his name's sake. Even though I walk in the valley, I fear no evil, for you are my side, with your rod and staff that give me courage. You spread the table before me in the sight of foes. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Only goodness and kindness follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord for years to come. Amen.
Thank you, Bob. I'd now like to introduce the Mayor of Marlborough, the Honorable Arthur Vigent.
Thank you, Mike. I just want to really welcome everyone on behalf of myself and the city councilors that are here today. Welcome you to this great event. When we started doing the invitations, Mike kept coming in and saying more and more people were coming, and it's just a fantastic day for the city for you all to come here and recognize these brave men that served in World War II. We are here to honor and recognize our servicemen and women who gave the ultimate sacrifices during World War II. This is the largest Medal of Liberty celebration we've held in Marlborough. And I'd like to thank all the families who made an effort to be here. I was told that someone out there actually came up from Tennessee. Is there someone from Tennessee here today? Thank you very much. Secretary Cheryl Poppy is here. Brigadier General Francis McGurn is here. Senator Eldridge came out today. Thank you very much. Representative Gentile and several of the city councilors are also here. I would also like to thank Marlborough Veterans Agent Mike Hennessy and the Marlborough Historical Society for organizing this special event today. And finally, a special thanks to Lieutenant Commander U.S. Navy Matt Sargent for his dedication to helping our vets. And while we're at it, can we all have a little congratulation applause for the recent graduate of the U.S. Naval War College, Matt Sargent. We have a lot of brave men that we have to recognize, so with that, they told me to stay short. I'd like to introduce Representative Gentile. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mayor Vigent, and I want to also welcome everyone here this afternoon. Thank you for coming. My father fought in the Second World War in North Africa, in Italy, and France, and Germany, and we were fortunate he was able to return. I wouldn't be here today if he hadn't returned. But we're here today to honor you, honor your fathers, grandfathers who fought in the war and perished, and we owe our freedom. We owe our freedom to them. In the Second World War, we had a horrible dictators who decided to just thought they could take over the world. Just as today we have another terrible dictator trying to take over the Ukraine, and our fathers and grandfathers and uncles and great uncles and some grandmothers fought, and many died, and your relatives passed in that war, gave their lives so that we could be free in this country. And we honor their memories, and we thank you so much for being here with us this afternoon. And I'd like to introduce General McGurn.
Good evening, everyone. It is both a personal and professional honor for me to be here with you this evening as we acknowledge the loss and sacrifice that so many families have paid or have suffered through. The actual Medal of Liberty was signed into law by Governor Baker after the legislature passed it with flying colors in order to not so much acknowledge the passing of a service member, but to specifically acknowledge the pain and suffering and the hole that a loved one leaves when they pass away in service of our country. I know that many of you are here to kind of fill out a family legacy, a piece of family history from many years ago, and some of you may be suffering a very recent loss. Nonetheless, it touches every family. It leaves a hole in every family, and I find it to be amongst the most emotional and honorable things that we in uniform do outside of perhaps presenting the colors to a family at a graveside. So with that, you can tell a lot about a community, the way they turn out for certain things, and this speaks an awful lot about the community of Marlborough. We've never had, or I've never attended, such a well-organized or large venue Medal of Liberty presentation event. So I think you all should give yourselves a big round of applause because quality shows. I got so wrapped up, I almost forgot to present my fellow Guard member and Secretary, Cheryl Poppy.
Thank you, General McGurn. Good afternoon. It is such an honor to be joining all of you today, all our elected officials, all our members of the military, all of our leaders in the community, but most importantly, the families of our fallen service members from the greatest generation. Today was Flag Day and also the Army birthday, and we came together to recognize, and we are now together to recognize these brave patriots who have died in the name of service to our great nation and Commonwealth. And while I did not know your loved ones personally, I think I can bet that they were people for whom service was a noble calling. It was a cause greater than themselves. These are individuals, patriots, who gave to their community and Commonwealth. They worked hard, They had their own dreams and aspirations for themselves and their families, and you are all the result of those dreams here. Their spirit lives on in you, their family members who they have left behind. And as General McGurn said, the Massachusetts Medal of Liberty ensures that that service and their sacrifice will never be forgotten. And while the loss of any service member is one too many, I take solace in the fact that Massachusetts has been and continues to be home to countless patriots from the Revolutionary War to today. This afternoon, I had the honor to be joining, celebrating also the Army birthday up at Dorchester Heights. And Governor Baker came to acknowledge that, this event, the 247th birthday. And he remarked on how we are the only country that does have leaders who serve and give their lives in other countries to keep us free. And you can see crosses all over the Commonwealth, the United States, and then even in other countries that signify and demonstrate that service and that sacrifice. And that's only in this country that we have seen that kind of sacrifice for freedom. And then from the great heroine and Massachusetts native Deborah Sampson, who disguised herself and fought during the American Revolution to battle the British. And then more recently, we lost Captain Ross Reynolds from the Marine Corps, who was killed in action in an Osprey crash in Norway earlier this year. We also lost Sergeant Johanny Rosario Pichardo, killed in action in Afghanistan at the end of the drawdown in August of 2021. And your loved ones are now joining with them in their spirit. And to your loved ones, those soldiers who were in the invasion of Normandy, who endured the cold of the Bastogne, I saw the photos and all of the different campaigns that they were involved with. From the Marines at Peleliu and Iwo Jima, from the Navy, who provided the destroyers, the Battle of Midway, who provided the transport to bring our soldiers and all the other service members overseas. And then also, we just a few weeks ago recognized merchant marines who suffered very high casualties during World War II and provided a lot of the transport and bringing the materials over for those overseas. So all of those fought in those battles. And the American patriots span different generations and from all walks of life. But what unites us is the continuous selfless service, sacrifice, and dedication to our nation and Commonwealth, fighting for one nation, one flag. We salute them, their bravery, their courage, and their valor. We remember them always. And I do want you to know that the Department of Veteran Services, whether Massachusetts or Tennessee or any other state that you are from, we are here to support you and your families, always. Thank you.
Hello, and thank you for joining us today. The Second World War from 1939 to 1945 shaped the world and affected the lives of millions from every nation on the planet. Over 800 men and women from Marlborough answered their nation's call to service in the Army, Navy, Marine Corps, Army Air Forces, Coast Guard, Merchant Marine, and in civil defense work. At this time, we have identified 115 men with a connection to the city of Marlborough by birth, life, or death that made the ultimate sacrifice during the course of the war. The youngest was 17, the oldest was 62. Today, we recognize the sacrifice of 38 of these men and recognize their families. Please hold all applause until the end. When called to be recognized, we ask a representative from each family to come to the stage, or if not able, please come to the front of the stage and we will come to you. Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 33, Section 67A. There shall be a Medal of Liberty which shall be awarded to the next of kin of servicemen and women from the Commonwealth, killed in action, or who died in service while in a designated combat area in the line of duty, or who died as a result of wounds received in action. Attention to orders. On behalf of Governor Charles Baker, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Medal of Liberty is presented to Second Lieutenant George Beaudreaul. George was born and raised in Marlborough and lived with his parents on Broad Street. He was an aviation enthusiast and enlisted into the Army Air Corps in November of 1942. Following his initial training, he earned his pilot's wings and a commission as a second lieutenant in 1943. He was ultimately assigned as a B-17 pilot with the 339th Bombardment Squadron 96th Bombardment Group. He arrived in England in June of 1944 and flew missions into Germany, for which he was awarded an Air Medal. On the 21st of July, 1944, while over Regensburg, Germany, George's B-17 was shot down by anti-aircraft fire, and all hands bailed out of the aircraft. George was able to deploy his parachute, only to be killed while crashing through the trees so close to the ground. He was 23 years old. He's buried at the Saint of Old American Cemetery and Memorial in Lorraine, France. On behalf of Governor Charles Baker, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Medal of Liberty is presented to Fireman First Class Valmore Beauregard. Valmore was born and raised in Marlborough and made his home with his parents on Mechanic Street. He enlisted into the Navy in February of 1944, and following his initial training, was assigned to Motor Torpedo Boat Squadron 16. He was assigned to Pvt 300 and participated in the Battle of Mindoro in the Philippines. On the 18th of December 1944, Pvt 300 was struck by a Japanese kamikaze and sunk, killing Valmore and 3 other members of his crew. He was 18 years old. Accepting the medal on behalf of Fireman First Class Valmore Beauregard is his niece, Cheryl Bourgault of Leominster, Massachusetts. On behalf of Governor Charles Baker, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Medal of Liberty is presented to Second Lieutenant Alfred Bond, Jr. Alfred was born and raised in Worcester, Massachusetts. He enlisted in the Army Air Corps and after earning his pilot's wings, was assigned to the 524th Fighter Squadron of the 27th Fighter Group. Flying P-47 Thunderbolt aircraft, Alfred flew over 35 missions in Italy, France, and Germany, for which he was awarded 3 separate air medals. On the 27th of April, 1945, after strafing German positions near Frankfurt, Alfred was shot down by anti-aircraft fire, and he was killed in the ensuing crash. He was 21 years old. Alfred is buried in Maplewood Cemetery in Marlborough. Accepting the medal on behalf of Second Lieutenant Alfred Bond, Jr. is his nephew, Thomas Jordan, from Berlin, Massachusetts. On behalf of Governor Charles Baker, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Medal of Liberty is presented to Private First Class Joseph Bouffard. Joseph was born and raised in Marlborough and made his home with his parents on Washington Street in Hudson. Joseph enlisted in the Army in February of 1944. Following his initial training, he was assigned to the 262nd Infantry Regiment with the 66th Infantry Division. Joseph and his fellow soldiers sailed to Europe aboard the SS Leopoldville and arrived in theater in early December of 1944. While en route to Cherbourg Harbor on the 25th of December 1944, the Leopoldville was torpedoed by a German U-boat. Joseph was among the 819 men who died on Christmas Day during the attack. He was 31 years old. Accepting the medal on behalf of Private First Class Joseph Bouffard is his great-niece, Roseanne Hunter of Shirley, Massachusetts. On behalf of Governor Charles Baker, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Medal of Liberty is presented to Private Daniel Cashman. Daniel was a resident of Marlborough and lived with his aunt on Pleasant Street. He enlisted into the Marine Corps while studying at Bentley College in 1942. Following his training, he was assigned to Howe Company, 2nd Battalion, 7th Regiment, 1st Marine Division. Daniel and the others of the 7th Marines landed on Guadalcanal in the Solomon Islands in September of 1942. On the night of 28 October 1942, Daniel was killed by a hand grenade during an attack on his company's position. He was 22 years old. He's buried at the National Memorial Cemetery of the Pacific in Honolulu, Hawaii. Accepting the medal on behalf of Private Daniel Cashman is his cousin, Margaret Thompson of Middleborough, Massachusetts.
This is on behalf of Governor Baker and the Adjutant General of Massachusetts.
On behalf of Governor Charles Baker, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Medal of Liberty is presented to Machinist Mate 2nd Class Charles Conley. Charles was born in Marlborough and was a resident of Nashua, New Hampshire when he enlisted into the Navy in 1942. Charles completed training and was assigned to the USS Henry Mallory. While en route to Europe in part of a convoy of ships, the Mallory was struck by a torpedo 600 miles southwest of Iceland on the 7th of February 1943. Charles was among the 272 men who were killed during this attack. He was 40 years old. Accepting the medal on behalf of Machinist Mate 2nd Class Charles Connolly is his daughter Doris Webb, represented by Bill Tate of the Marlborough Historical Society. On behalf of Governor Charles Baker, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Medal of Liberty is presented to Aviation Machinist Mate 3rd Class Ernest Damico. Ernest was raised in Marlborough and lived with his mother and stepfather on Howland Street. He enlisted into the Navy in 1942 and following his initial training was assigned to work on naval aircraft aboard carriers. He soared aboard the carriers Charger and Ranger before being assigned to the USS Franklin as part of the commissioning crew. The Franklin departed for the Pacific in the early summer of 1944 and participated in fighting near the Marianas Islands, Peleliu, and Leyte in the Philippines. Franklin was damaged by a kamikaze in late October 1944 and was required to return stateside for repairs. Back in the Pacific in early 1945, the Franklin was hit by a Japanese bomber while operating 50 miles from mainland Japan on the 19th of March 1945. Ernest was among the 807 men killed during the attack. He was 20 years old. Accepting the medal on behalf of Aviation Machinist Mate 3rd Class Ernest Damico is his niece, Catherine Kuiper of Marlborough, Massachusetts. On behalf of Governor Charles Baker, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Medal of Liberty is presented to Staff Sergeant Peter Desimone. Peter was born and raised in Marlborough and made his home with his parents on Lincoln Street. He enlisted into the Army Air Corps in September of 1942. Following his initial training, he was assigned to the 577th Bombardment Squadron, the 392nd Bombardment Group. Peter was assigned as a nose and waist gunner to a B-24 aircraft named Miss America. On the 13th of November 1943, on their fifth mission to bomb Germany, the B-24 was struck by bombs from another aircraft in its formation and attacked by fighters as it attempted to limp home. The aircraft crashed into the North Sea with a loss of all hands. Peter was 22 years old. Accepting the medal on behalf of Staff Sergeant Peter Desimone is his nephew, Peter Desimone, represented by Karen Widener, Marlborough Historical Society trustee. On behalf of Governor Charles Baker, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Medal of Liberty is presented to Second Lieutenant Albert Dusseault. Albert was born in Hudson and was raised in Haverhill. He enlisted in the Army Air Corps while living in New Hampshire, and after earning his pilot's wings, was assigned to the 21st Fighter Squadron of the 413th Fighter Group. On the 19th of May, 1945, while attempting to land his P-47 Thunderbolt on an airfield at Ieshima in the Ryukyu Islands, the aircraft crashed, killing Albert. He was 24 years old and is buried at the St. Mary's Cemetery in Marlborough. Accepting the medal on behalf of Second Lieutenant Albert Dusseault is his nephew, Ralph Jolie, represented by Lisa Stone, Marlborough Historical Society trustee. On behalf of Governor Charles Baker, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Medal of Liberty is presented to Motor Machinist Mate First Class Edmond Ethier. Edmond was born in Marlborough and served his first enlistment in the Navy from 1929 to 1932, serving aboard battleships and an ammunition ship. After returning home, Edmond made his home on Mechanic Street in Marlborough and worked as an auto mechanic in a garage. He enlisted in the Navy in 1942 and was assigned to the USS Ancon and participated in the landings in North Africa. Edmond was transferred to the landing ship tank USS LST-342 in February of 1943. On the 18th of July, 1943, while operating near the Solomon Islands in the South Pacific, LST-342 was hit by a torpedo from a Japanese submarine and sunk, killing 90 men, including Edmond. He was 30 years old. Accepting the medal on behalf of Motor Machinist Mate First Class Edmond Ethier is his daughter, Patricia Nicoloulis, from Natick, Massachusetts. On behalf of Governor Charles Baker, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Medal of Liberty is presented to Captain George Peter Evans. George was born in Marlborough and raised in Marlborough. He became interested in aviation and worked at the Parks Air College in East St. Louis, Illinois. He was commissioned an officer in the Royal Air Force Ferry Command while living in Montreal, Canada. He was a very successful pilot and credited with being among the first to fly the Arctic route to bring supplies and aircraft to Europe. He was awarded the Officer of the Most Distinguished Order of the British Empire by the King of England in 1943. On the 4th of July, 1945, while piloting a transport aircraft with a delegation of British State Department officials from Montreal back to the United Kingdom, the aircraft crashed into the North Atlantic with a loss of all hands. George was 34 years old. Accepting the medal on behalf of Captain George Peter Evans is his grandson, Maurice Covey, represented by Sandra Huey, volunteer researcher. On behalf of Governor Charles Baker, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Medal of Liberty is presented to Private First Class Joseph Ferrecchia. Joseph was raised in Marlborough and was living in Clinton when he enlisted in the Army in March of 1944. Following his initial training, he was assigned to the 8th Infantry Regiment, 4th Infantry Division. He met his new unit in September of 1944 in time to fight in the Hurtgen Forest. A prolific writer, Joseph's letters were reprinted in the Marlborough Enterprise and Clinton Item. On the 9th of February 1945, Joseph was killed in action along the German border. He was 28 years old. He's buried in the Immaculate Conception Cemetery in Marlborough. Accepting the medal on behalf of Private First Class Joseph Ferrecchia is his daughter, Barbara Wells, represented by Buck Coliani, Marlborough Historical Society trustee. On behalf of Governor Charles Baker, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Medal of Liberty is presented to Corporal Joseph Roger Fontaine. Joseph attended the Wayside Inn School for Boys and was living in Marlborough when he enlisted into the Marine Corps in December of 1941. Following his initial training, Joseph was assigned to Delta Company, 1st Battalion, 1st Regiment, 1st Marine Division. Surviving the fighting at Guadalcanal from August of 1942 to February of 1943, Joseph and the 1st Marine Division were sent to Australia for rest and training. On the 16th of August 1943, while performing maneuvers near Melbourne, Australia, a short mortar round landed on Joseph's machine gun position, killing him. He was 22 years old. He's buried at the National Cemetery of the Pacific in Honolulu, Hawaii. Accepting the medal on behalf of Corporal Joseph Roger Fontaine is his nephew, Paul Roger Senes of Westfield, Massachusetts. On behalf of Governor Charles Baker, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Medal of Liberty is presented to Sergeant Wallace Gaucher, Jr. Wallace was born and raised in Hudson before moving to Marlborough with his parents, where they lived on Maplewood Avenue. He enlisted into the Army in May of 1943 while working at the LaPont Machine Tool Company. Following his initial training, he was assigned to the 18th Infantry Regiment of the 1st Infantry Division. On the 5th of May 1945, Wallace was killed in Czechoslovakia. He was 22 years old. Wallace is buried at the Lorraine American Cemetery and Memorial in Saint-Avold, France. Accepting the medal on behalf of Sergeant Wallace Gaucher, Jr. is his great-grandnephew, William Campbell of Marlborough, Massachusetts. On behalf of Governor Charles Baker, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Medal of Liberty is presented to Private First Class Alfred Gregoire. Alfred resided on Bolton Street in Marlborough and enlisted into the Army shortly after his marriage in 1942. He He was assigned to the 180th Infantry Regiment of the 45th Infantry Division. He participated on the amphibious assault onto Sicily in 1943, where he was wounded in the leg. Alfred and his regiment next participated in the amphibious assault onto mainland Italy near Salerno, spending the next 119 days in combat. Alfred and the 180th next landed at Anzio, Italy, where Alfred was killed during an artillery attack the 22nd of February 1944. He was 28 years old. Alfred is buried at the Sicily-Rome American War Cemetery in Nettuno, Italy. Accepting the medal on behalf of Private First Class Alfred Gregoire is his nephew, James Gregoire of Marlborough, Massachusetts. The next two awards are the first set of two sets of brothers that were killed from Marlborough. On behalf of Governor Charles Baker, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Medal of Liberty is presented to Private Woodrow Houde. Woodrow was born and raised in Marlborough and a graduate of Marlborough High School. He enlisted in the Marine Corps in May of 1939. Following his initial training, he was assigned to the 1st Marine Defense Battalion, which was defending Wake Island. Woodrow was among the small garrison of troops that was attacked shortly after the surprise bombing of Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. On the 23rd of December, 1941, while attempting to repel a Japanese attack, Woodrow was killed in action by a Japanese sniper. He was 23 years old and the first man from Marlborough to die in the Second World War. He's buried at the National Memorial Cemetery of the Pacific in Honolulu, Hawaii. Accepting the medal on behalf of Private Woodrow Houde is his niece, Joanne Papagno Sparks of Palm Coast, Florida. On behalf of Governor Charles Baker, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Medal of Liberty is presented to Private First Class Albert Houde. Albert resided in Marlborough on Berkeley Street when he enlisted in the United States Marine Corps to avenge the death of his brother Woodrow. Albert served in the 1st Battalion, 23rd Regiment, 4th Marine Division. On the 16th of June, 1944, the second day of the battle for Saipan in the Marianas Islands, Alfred was killed while manning a machine gun. He was 21 years old. He's buried at St. Mary's Cemetery in Marlborough. Accepting the medal on behalf of Private First Class Albert Houde is his niece, Alberta Fitzpatrick of Newton, Massachusetts.
To show this to everybody here. This was my uncle, my godfather, Alfred, that died in the Second World War. I never knew him because he died 5 days before I was born. So I always grew up wondering about him. And I always had his picture in my bedroom. And I talked to him a lot. And this is a wonderful, fitting way for us all to understand what this was all about. This says, Albert sent this to my mother. It says, to the best sis a guy could ever have. Can you show it to me? Sure.
Don't leave yet. Don't leave yet. Okay.
On behalf of Governor Charles Baker, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Medal of Liberty is presented to Technical Sergeant Leon Lamarre. Leon was born in New Hampshire and raised in Vermont. He was a member of the 172nd Infantry Regiment of the Vermont National Guard, and following his first enlistment, lived with his sister Laura Bergeron on Maple Street. He was mobilized for federal service in September of 1942 and was assigned to the 47th Armored Infantry Battalion of the 5th Armored Division. Leon and his fellow soldiers landed on Utah Beach shortly after the initial landings on D-Day, and he was with this unit through the liberation of Paris, France, and Luxembourg City, Luxembourg. During this time, Leon was awarded a Bronze Star. On the 21st of September 1944, Leon was killed in action during attacks against the German Siegfried Line. He was 37 years old. Leon is buried at the Cavalry Cemetery in Greenfield, Massachusetts. Accepting the medal on behalf of Technical Sergeant Leon Lamarre is his niece, Barbara Nelson, of Marlborough, Massachusetts. On behalf of Governor Charles Baker, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Medal of Liberty is presented to Pvt Eugene Lambert. Eugene was born and raised in Marlborough and made his home with his parents on Monument Avenue. He was a member of the Company K of the 181st Infantry Regiment, Massachusetts National Guard, and following his mobilization, he trained as a paratrooper at Fort Benning, Georgia. Eugene earned his paratrooper wings and was assigned to Company A of the 502nd Parachute Infantry Regiment, 101st Airborne Division. On the 6th of June 1944, while participating in the invasion of mainland Europe, Eugene was killed in action. He was 25 years old. He's buried at the Normandy American Cemetery and Memorial in Colleville-sur-Mer, France. Accepting the medal on behalf of Pvt Eugene Lambert is his niece, Mary Belmore of North Grafton, Massachusetts.
Thank you.